The Philippines is an island archipelago in Southeast Asia, made up of over 7,000 islands halfway between the Tropic of Cancer and the equator. The tropical island nation is home to around 109 million people, with the majority of the islands being either uninhabited or sparsely populated. This makes the country an ideal case study to assess our relationship with nature. Being a biodiversity hotspot, one is never far from interesting wildlife. Rows of uncut weeds would harbour small insects and dragonflies, providing shade from the midday sun. By night, the silence of the countryside would be drowned out by geckos, with the backing of thousands of unseen insects in the nearby trees. White sandy beaches meet crystal clear waters to make the picture-perfect coastlines the ideal holiday destination for tourists. Oslob, on the island of Cebu, is one of such beauty spots, and is where this review of our relationship with nature begins. The area sees high numbers of tourists flock to the beaches where wildlife watching and diving tours are held. Each tour involves hours of waiting for just a few minutes in the water with some of the world's largest animals, the whale sharks. Being a site famous for excursions to swim with the whale sharks, it was advised to arrive early. However, even by 7 AM, the beach was rammed with people. Crowds would gather in the few areas of shade to shelter from the sun as it rose high into the sky. Newly arriving visitors would find themselves waiting around for hours, waiting to get into the boats, in which time all visitors were informed of the rules about being in the water and around the whale sharks. One of these rules was to stay a set distance away from the whale sharks at all times, or face incurring a fine, though as it would become apparent, this would be ignored by both tourists and the boatmen themselves. Eventually, after hours of waiting, it was finally time to get into a boat. Rather than being a natural feeding spot, the site just off the coast was a man-made feeding ground with whale sharks being lured in with bait. People both on the boat and in the water would scream and splash to try and get the attention of the whale sharks, all just for a quick photo on a hired GoPro. While being in the water with the world's largest fish was an incredible experience, upon reflection, it felt wrong to have taken enjoyment out of what must be a stressful experience for the wild animals. In some ways, the experience was a guilty pleasure, an opinion shared by 60% of visitors who raised concerns about the ethics of the Oslob Whale Shark experience in a 2018 study. Tempting wild animals with food for the sake of mass wildlife tourism raises a range of issues concerning the ethics of the industry. Of course, as a country with over 36,000 kilometres of coastline, not all beaches are as crowded as Oslob. On the rural island of Siquijor, southeast from Cebu, tourism is still a prominent industry, though nowhere near on the scale as Oslob. Here, the beaches and countryside remain unspoilt by dense crowds of people, allowing the majesty of the Philippine tropical landscape to take hold. As incredible as the beaches of Siquijor are, the unfortunate truth is they highlight one of humanity's dirtiest problems: ocean plastic. The Philippines is ranked equal third in the world for its share of mismanaged plastic, with much of it going to landfill or into the ocean. However, this is an issue that goes far beyond the Philippines alone, and is a problem on a global scale. Washed up plastic was always cleared at the busier tourist beaches, but left along the areas of quiet coastline away from the holiday resorts. 60 to 90% of all marine debris is plastic, and once in the ocean, becomes deadly to wildlife as they become entangled or ingest our mismanaged waste. Single-use plastics, such as straws, bags and cotton buds, are among the most frequently found items along beaches, with plastic bags being used for most by over half of the people who took part in a survey as part of this research. Despite the bleak outlook, there is hope for the future, as studies have shown a shift in the relationship we have with single-use plastics. Some studies have shown this is partly down to the progress which has been kicked into motion by David Attenborough and his hit series Blue Planet 2, which highlighted the problems single-use plastics can cause. A survey conducted for this research found an overwhelming majority of people would support a complete ban on single-use plastic. In response to David Attenborough's documentary, the survey for this research also found 88% of people have cut back in their usage of single-use plastics since the airing of Blue Planet 2. Almost 20% of the sample have attributed their reductions as a direct result of the ocean plastic episode. Even in a country like the Philippines, action is being taken to reduce single-use plastic waste. The provincial government of Siquijor have introduced a series of measures to cut back on their usage of discardable plastic, with the goal of becoming the first province in the Philippines to have a total zero waste strategy. Regulations include a charge on new plastic bags, plastic holidays when no plastic bags may be sold or used on a Sunday, as well as fines for non-compliant businesses. As has been reviewed so far, it can be easy to pull negatives out of our relationship with nature. However, there are places where people are making a real change, especially for endangered wildlife. In the Visayan region of the Philippines, one such place can be found in the centre of Dumaguete, a city on the island of Negros. The Centre for Tropical Studies, also known as CENTROP, is home to some of the most endangered flora and fauna endemic to the Visayan island group. The facility is hidden away down a quiet street with only a wire fence and a billboard marking the entrance. A short walk away from the street takes you to another gate by the ticket office. CENTROP was visited twice for this project, and on both occasions the facility was empty of visitors. The only sounds being made were by the animals themselves or the insects in the canopy above, drowning out the sound of the bustling city which surrounds CENTROP. The first enclosure is that of the Visayan spotted deer. As the name would suggest, these deer were once found across 6 islands in the Visayan region of the Philippines. However, today they are only found on the 2 islands of Negros and Panay as a result of habitat loss and excessive hunting. The IUCN categorised the species as endangered, with approximately 2,500 individuals remaining in the wild, though only 700 may be mature enough to breed. The path runs past the first enclosure, leading visitors up and onto a long concrete walkway. From there, guests have a view over the full facility, with a large portion of the space being taken up by the spotted deer enclosures. Once across the walkway, visitors are met with large green mesh enclosures that house some of the region's most endangered species of bats. While only one was open during the day of the recording, each provides an internal walkway to get closer to the animals. Opposite the bats were some rather small metal cages, each with a single bird. One was home to a Brahmini kite, and the other a female Visayan pteryctic hornbill. While the cages for these birds seemed small, they were in clear contrast to the large cage at the centre of the facility. This cage is home to the Negros Bleeding Heart Doves, a species endemic to the 2 islands of Negros and Panay. These incredibly vibrant birds are one of 5 species within the Gallicolumba genus and have the distinctive red feathers below the crop, giving them their name as bleeding heart doves. The Bristol Zoological Society has been working with CENTROP as part of their Philippine conservation project, made evident by the sign hanging on the side of the newly built cage. To find out more about the doves and CENTROP's partnership with Bristol, I visited Bristol Zoo to meet up with one of the Society's leading conservationists working on the Philippine project.
The project was set up around 2000, where Bristol Zoo decided to have a special interest in the Philippines. and specifically on the Negros Bleeding Heart was started in 2014. CENTROP is actually one of our longest partnership with the Philippine project. And we started, I believe, maybe in 2014, we started to work with CENTROP, so very, very long time. One really key thing about CENTROP is that there is 2 places in the world where this species is found in captivity and bred. And these 2 places are, one of them is CENTROP, and the other one is Telarac. And these 2 breeding centers are in Negros Island. Nowhere else in the world they are found. So these 2 centers are actually quite important for the safeguarding of the species. The species seems to thrive most in very quiet habitats, so a habitat where there's no humans, right? This species is very, very shy, very hard to see actually in the wild. That's why so many birders go and try to see it. They also quite like primary forest instead of secondary forest or depleted forest.
Throughout Southeast Asia and across the world's tropics, easily accessible primary forests are quickly being cut down and turned into agricultural land. The effects of this are made worse for the Negros Bleeding Hearts, as they are confined to the lowland forests of their 2 native islands with no alternative habitat to escape to.
The biggest threats of the Negros Bleeding Heart Dove is habitat loss and also habitat fragmentation, because as I say, this species is quite shy, right? Lowland forest is a very important habitat for them because they don't really breed in high elevation, high altitude. Because this habitat is like the first that is being depleted, habitat loss is the biggest drive to the disappearance of a species. We see hunters in our camera traps, but we believe that they target more warty pigs and macaques. Usually they hunt for meat. We are not sure yet whether it's sustenance or commercial use. But basically we don't think that they will be hunting for birds, but they will be disruptive, and that's a problem.
As a result of being threatened by human activity to the point of having just a few scattered populations across Negros and Panay, the species has been listed as critically endangered by the IUCN in every assessment since 1994. The Bristol Zoological Society are actively working in the Philippines to try and build on existing knowledge, as well as to establish new understandings of this incredibly elusive bird.
I have 2 researchers that are going to lead 2 teams, and they are going to do a wide survey of the whole area, which has never been done before, trying to understand what are the threats and how many Negros Bleeding Heart Dove individuals there is. People say up to 400 individual or breeding individual in the wild, but we don't know that. It's a very old estimate.
The figure of there being up to 400 wild individuals refers to the estimation made from the research report by BirdLife International in 2001. Wild sightings may be rare, but catching them on camera is even more difficult. However, it is safe to say these birds are still present in the wild. One individual can be seen clearly in this raw footage filmed on one of Bristol's expeditions in the Philippines, as well as in this footage from one of their camera traps. Though the wild population figure needs updating, it was clear during my visit to CENTROP that the Negros Bleeding Hearts do appear to be doing well in captivity. There were numerous birds moving throughout the newly built cage, so I was keen to find out exactly how many were kept in the 2 breeding facilities.
And so in CENTROP we have 31 individuals, and in Telarac and Cabancalan, so Telarac is 2 sites, 2 breeding sites, and they have 28 and 29. So overall, basically about 88 individuals in breeding facilities.
To learn there are 88 birds in captivity was surprising, yet also promising, especially considering that they are only captive in 2 locations. Bristol Zoo is currently home to 2 species of bleeding heart dove, the Luzon bleeding heart and the Mindanao bleeding heart. These 2 species are found within the zoo's indoor Forest of Birds enclosure, also home to a wide variety of other Southeast Asian bird species. After seeing the birds at Bristol Zoo, this of course had me wondering if one day the Negros Bleeding Hearts would make an appearance at Bristol, or for that matter, any other zoos outside of the Philippines.
Well, yes. So we are thinking, so Singapore Zoo would like to have some individuals, and this is slowly going through the process. And then after that, and possibly, we would like to have a population in the UK, in Bristol Zoo, for example, that would have this species, yes. we're quite keen. But this takes a very long time, lots of paperwork.
For now, Bristol will remain home only to the Luzon and Mindanao Bleeding Heart Doves. Though it may be some years away, it was promising to hear the Negros Bleeding Heart may one day feature at Bristol Zoo, should the breeding programs in the Philippines continue to grow the captive population. While this is positive news for the ones in captivity, the reality is these birds, like all the animals at CENTROP, are suffering in the wild at the hands of unsustainable human practices. Their forest homes may be a whole world away from what we are used to here in the UK. However, ultimately, a large portion of the destruction seen throughout the tropics is consumer-driven deforestation. It is therefore worth knowing what we as consumers can do to help the situation in the wild for some of these animals.
As always, try to find products that are sustainably sourced. And one thing that is really easy to do, and I do it at home, is always try to buy FSC product. So if you don't know what FSC stands for, it's kind of like a little tick tree that you can see in product that stands for Forest Stewardship Council. And that's basically a tick tree that tells you that the product that you're buying, toilet paper, kitchen paper, books, whatever, this FSC tells you that this tree has been sustainably sourced and that it's not helping out deforesting the world. So try to go for FSC products, always the best.
In a survey undertaken as part of this research project, only 10.5% of people said the sustainability of the products they buy was their top priority when shopping, while the price of the product was the most important to just under half of the sample. Sustainable and organic products are sometimes listed at a premium price, so if we were to see a real change in the consumer habits we exhibit, a centre ground must be found which makes sustainably made products more competitively priced and accessible to more. While the current captive population for the Negros Bleeding Hearts is healthy, I wanted to hear from someone working on the front lines of their conservation whether there is indeed a future for these birds in the wild.
Actually, I would say yes. I would say that I'm quite optimistic for this Negros Bleeding Heart Dove. Why? Because there is a value in this species that is brought by ecotourism, as well as a genuine interest by many people that I encounter on this one species. I think that we can do something actually in the places where we work, in Northwest Panay and in North Negros. We can actually protect them and also try to find solutions for the local communities to thrive and to have a better quality of life. So I am actually optimistic for this species.
It is true to say the living conditions for many of the animals at CENTROP are poor in comparison to other breeding facilities and a far cry from the standards of zoos here in the UK. However, I for one do not believe the conditions are as they are as a result of a lack of care for the animals, but rather just a case that CENTROP is doing the best it can with the limited funds it has. After all, the entry fee for a single adult is just 10 pesos, the equivalent of 15 pence at the time of the visit. Without CENTROP, it is likely the population declines these species face would continue to the point of no return. It is safe to say many areas of our global relationship with nature needs great improvement. However, we are now at a turning point in our history where people across the world are realising the unique value our natural world has. Without the care and attention some people give to the environment, many species would simply cease to exist. And so perhaps that is why, at a time when we are seeing record-breaking rates of destruction across the natural world, the way we as a species interact with our planet is now more vital than ever.